awesome work there. And
Mhm.
I should probably say calling you a poet is probably limiting of what you do, because I know you're a writer, you're a musician as well.
Mhm.
So we're so happy that you're with us today. So everybody,
Yeah,
Micah
glad to
Bournes,
be here. Glad to be here.
good
Yeah.
to see you. So how are you doing in this time of weirdness? Is it stifled your creativity? Has it blossomed your creativity?
For me, obviously the circumstances are awful, but I've really been enjoying my time. I'm not gonna lie. I'm surprising myself because I think of myself as a super extroverted person, and I thought it was gonna be really hard. But I really embraced it, and I try to do that with all of life. I know, it's all about perspective. So many things can be seen as limiting or a setback, but depending on how you look at it, it doesn't have to be that way. And so, yeah, I've really embraced the time of reflection uh, and dove into my creativity for sure. Yeah,
Have you been writing during this time, poetry?
I have. I think I've kind of thought about it as a unique opportunity. I feel like this is unprecedented in the sense of probably never again in our lives will we be asked to stay inside for too much straight. Um, and so this is a time where instead of just figuring out, how do I shift my normal routine and do something similar via the internet, I'm like, how do I sit with myself? When's the next time I'm going to have this much time to be with my own thoughts? And I've really been embracing that. So I try to write in a disciplined way. I write every day anyway. However, now I'm I'm writing significantly more than I would, as far as like, I might write for 15, 20 minutes every day. But now I'm like, okay, I got like an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours if I want. Um, and just that sitting with myself, not just when it comes to my creativity, but my whole person, my body. Like I have a chronic illness. And so I'm always like pushing myself to the limits of my physical capabilities. And I'm like, oh, this is how it feels when I actually get the amount of rest that I want. And and then I feel like on the other end of this, it will change things. Like I don't have to say yes to as many things, type of thing. But anyway, one of my most influential mentors when I was in college was a professor named Dr. McDuffie. And he said, we write to have that existential encounter, even if the encounter of the other is ourselves. And I love that. And I really feel like this is a time for me personally where instead of just trying to connect online with the same amount of people, I'm just really writing and connecting with myself and reflecting. And yeah, I would encourage, like, it's not even just like, oh, let me try to crank out my next book or crank out my next project, but let me really sit with myself and get my thoughts out through creativity and other things, and see how that feels. Absolutely.
Cultural
Absolutely.
dominance.
Absolutely. And it was like, I thought I hated poetry
Right.
because I was only exposed to the classics, which is predominantly really old, dead white folk. But literally the first time I had an experience with poetry where I felt connected to it and I understood not just the vocabulary, but the stories, and I saw myself reflected in it, I loved it. It was one night. One friend invited me to an open mic, and it was in LA, and it was multicultural, which is what I was used to. Poets from all different cultures and age groups. There was a younger crowd, but not exclusively. But they were just writing poems in vocabulary I understood, in stories that I understood. And I was like, this is dope. I actually really like this.
I know that when you've come to my school last 2, 3 years in a row, the kids really like your thinking about the importance of volume, of getting over this fear that what you're going to create is crappy. In fact, that's a necessary step in creating stuff that's good. Could you maybe speak to that a little bit, Micah?
Yeah. Um, I I think that's one of the biggest hurdles to creativity. So many people, no matter what type of creativity, they're interested in it, they want to do it, but they're afraid that it's going to be bad. And their thinking is, unless I'm really good at it, there's no point in doing it, which I think is flawed. I always ask people, what is your motivation? Why do you want to create? Creativity is something that is healthy for us. It really doesn't matter if it's good or not. If it is good, that's awesome. But I didn't start writing poetry or music because I thought I was really good at it. I wasn't really good at it. I had never done it before. But once I started, why did I start? Well, the night I went to that open mic, I saw the vulnerability. I heard my story. I was so excited to realize that other people understood what I was going through, and that there was a place where I could share that without being embarrassed or ashamed or whatever. And so when you think about your motivation for writing, it's to, if you need to process those things, right? If you need to get them off your chest, if you need to connect, if you need to whatever, then whether or not the poem is good is irrelevant. You did something that was healthy for your overall, self and your spirit and your mind. And so I say, first of all, your motivation. And the metaphor I use is exercise, right? Like, even if you're not a professional athlete, it's still good to exercise. If you like going for a jog, but you're not very quick, it wouldn't make any sense for your friends to be like, why do you bother running? You're not going to go to the Olympics. You're not going to win a gold medal. Just stop. And you're like, excuse me. Like, I know I'm not fast. I'm not up here trying to win a gold medal. I'm exercising because it's healthy for me. And that's why I say, why don't we treat creativity like that? Who cares if you're not good at it, quote unquote? It's healthy for you. Do it. If you enjoy it, just do it. It will definitely be good for you. So there's that. The majority of what you make is not going to be good. It's really absurd to think every single time I pick up my pen, brilliance. Every time. You know what I'm saying? Like, every time I pick up that paintbrush, it's going to be a masterpiece. But that's the type of pressure we put on ourselves. So yeah. I definitely think that, like you said, Kelly, low pressure. Like, just let it come out. If it's good, it's good. If it's not, it was still worth creating, So I have an anthology that I helped put together, Fight Evil with Poetry. And it is 30 different poets writing about justice issues. So I have 3 poems in here, but I'm actually working on my first full-length book of poetry. I've done some albums of hip-hop and spoken word, but yeah, this poem 2020 will be in my book, and it will come out later this year, within the next couple months. And it's called Here Comes This Dreamer. So, but real quick, by way of introduction, this poem was sparked by several different things, a conversation I had with a friend, but the movie Back to the Future. I was online looking, and I saw an article about it, and the future that they go to was 5 years ago. It was 2015. Yeah. I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, that's hilarious. So that's what sparked this poem. It's called 2020. 5 years beyond Back to the Future's future. 8 years beyond the Mayan apocalypse. 2 decades beyond Y2K. We exist in a future we worried would never be. I exist in a history I worry will never die. My white friend cries, ashamed of her naivety, not realizing her father was more than a socially acceptable amount of racist. Said he was disgusted at the thought of her holding her new Kenyan boyfriend's hand. I thought of the hugs we've shared, of how repulsed he would be by our gentleness. I thought of King's dream, still a dream. I thought of Langston's dream, still deferred. I wondered how short the fuse must be by now. I thought of Frederick Douglass, of his courage, of his marriage to a white woman in the 1800s, shortly after his Black and first wife stopped dreaming forever. I thought of dreams. I thought of future, of how it will disappoint me, of how it is 2020 and we still don't have flying cars or hoverboards. I thought of time, of how it will not save my children. I thought of love, of how it always takes courage, no matter what century it is beaten and burning and dreaming in.
Ooh.